What's going on, everyone? Hopefully, you're feeling all right. Hopefully, you're having a good day, all that stuff. Today, we're going to talk about poetry. And for some people, they love poetry. For some people, they hate it. It's something we call polarizing. There are very few people in the middle on poetry. They either love it or they hate it. And I think one of the reasons people will either love or hate poetry is because like there are no rules. And even if you establish some rules, you can break them. So sometimes there is a very strict rhyme scheme where certain lines will rhyme with other ones, and then sometimes there are no rhymes. These poems that we read here, the emphasis is not on the rhyming. Some people think that when you come to the end of a line, like you stop reading. I'll show you a little bit how to read poetry today. It does take a little bit of time knowing when to stop, when to continue. Sometimes there are end marks like a period or exclamation point that will help you realize you have to stop. Sometimes a comma, where you might take a small pause, then sometimes not. All right, the first thing I want to talk about, though, are stanzas. So everything we've read in here so far is called prose. The opposite of prose is poetry. So in prose, you have something called paragraphs. And the idea for paragraphs is that they organize thoughts. Same with stanzas and poetry. We just call them something different. They're stanzas. The first poem we read in here, it's called Catching Fire, is going to have three stanzas. We'll get to that. But first, I would like to talk about the two poets. Sometimes the lives of the authors or the poets, the writers, are important. Sometimes they're not. I think here it is important. You will have something on Google Classroom. I'm just like sharing the whole thing with you. It's on Google Classroom, and it looks like this. So it starts off talking about the two poets. So why don't we do the same? It's like 12 pages long. You really only need a couple pages, and there will be a Google form. You won't have to like if you go down here. It's hanging fire. Sorry, hanging fire, not catching fire. That's the what is that? Katniss, and that's the second book of that series. So these questions, it will be on a Google form. But let's look at these two poets here. Audre Lorde is the first one, and you can see that she's passed away. But at one time, she was a Caribbean American poet and civil rights activist. Now, if you do the math, she was born in 34. She was about 30 during the civil rights movement of the 1960s. So I'm going to pause here and I'm going to ask, what does that mean? The civil rights movement of the 1960s. So she was definitely part of that movement. If you're watching at home, it was the 1960s were a big time. Dr. Martin Luther King was around, and there was a big push for equality based on race. In the 1970s, that will be more of like, we would call that the women's movement. So that was a decade for women to try to become more equal. So she was definitely part of that. Audre Lorde. Make that a little bigger. She has since passed, as we said. Her poetry and writing addresses social prejudices and injustices. So a prejudice would be, I think of it as like prejudging. So for whatever reason, you prejudge a person. Could be on gender, could be the way they look, could be about race, could be about religion. But before you even meet that person, you have an idea of what they are like based on their appearance or their belief before you even know them. That's a prejudice. And what does it say? She's from New York. Let me make that a little bigger so I can see it. Yeah, she was a poet laureate of New York. And the poet laureate, each state has a poet laureate. I don't know who ours is. And the nation has a poet laureate. So it's like, it's a poet that represents a place, and they serve for a period of time. When President Biden became president, there there was a big, I can't remember her name. It's a great poem. She wore a yellow jacket, if you remember that. We'll do some work on her a little bit later. I can't remember her name, but yeah, so poetry is often kind of connected with government a little bit, at least the states. And we do have a national poet laureate. Don't know who that is, though. Hanging fire. Let's go over to this part here. Learn a little bit about this. I'm in the blue over here. Adolescence can be a challenging stage of life. Teenage years, with childhood left behind, but adulthood not yet achieved. In Hanging Fire, Audre Lorde explores the frustrating feelings that can arise from the contradictions of being a young adult. And I'm sure you all know those contradictions. Maybe some days people will be treating you like a child, and you're like, I'm not a child yet. I mean, I'm not a child anymore. But then some people might be treating you too much like an adult, and it might be like, I'm not an adult yet. I feel bad for people today, 2022, in their 20s. It's tough. You will be there soon. I hope things change before you get there. But right now, if you want to buy a house, it's nearly impossible. If you want to pay for college, it's nearly impossible. Things are getting so expensive. So when you hear of 20s, you think, oh, yeah, they're definitely adults. Yeah, but it's getting really hard to pay for things. And I know a lot of people in their 20s are still living with their parents, are like, I'm not a child anymore. Why am I living with my parents? So expensive. We got a few years. Hopefully things will change. But I do think adolescence is kind of moving to a later stage in life, maybe like 24, 25, 26 even. You can stay on your parents' insurance until age 26, I think. It might be 23. But so 18 used to be that, okay, you're an adult. Now it's moving further. Things are getting harder to afford. So Hanging Fire is about that. I really love Hanging Fire. Why don't we start reading the poem right now? And I think what we should do is read it twice. This is going on a little long. Maybe we will save translating Grandfather's House until tomorrow. But I do want to read Hanging Fire twice. That's the thing about poetry, is that it's not meant to be read once. It's almost like a song where you can listen to your favorite song over and over. If somebody is really into poetry, you might reread poetry a couple times. You might read it in a couple weeks, revisit it later on in life. And it could mean different things to you, just like a song might mean different things. All right, let's make this a little bigger, and we will read these 3 stanzas. Yeah, let's just do this first, because this will be like a half an hour video if we don't. All right, so, I mean, not always, but sometimes the picture might be helpful, and it looks like we have a young girl here. Maybe I shouldn't assume her gender. We have this person here, and they look sad. Oh, but maybe I shouldn't assume their emotions either. Maybe they're very happy. I don't know. But to me, the person looks sad. And I have read this poem a few times before, and I do believe this person's sad. First stanza, it's 11 lines. Each of these are, every 5, it's numbered. So we got 11 lines in this first stanza. I'm 14, and my skin has betrayed me. So that is kind of like one sentence there. And you might have to read this. The highlighting is awful. Learned that before. This is like one sentence here. And the first time you read a poem, it might be just to figure out where you need to stop. There is literally no end mark there. So it just kind of felt right for me to stop there. But the more times you read it, the better you'll get for that feel of when to stop and kind of make the ideas whole. So I won't stop again. I'm going to read it through once, okay? And then try to let that all sink in. But again, it may take a couple times. All right. I'm 14, and my skin has betrayed me. The boy I cannot live without still sucks his thumb in secret. How come my knees are always so ashy? What if I die before morning and mama's in the bedroom with the door closed? I have to learn how to dance in time for the next party. My room is too small for me. Suppose I die before graduation. They will sing sad melodies, but finally tell the truth about me. There's nothing I want to do and too much that has to be done. And mama's in the bedroom with the door closed. Nobody even stops to think about my side of it. I should have been on math team. My marks were better than his. Why do I have to be the one wearing braces? I have nothing to wear tomorrow. Will I live long enough to grow up? And mama's in the bedroom with the door closed. All right, that's one time through. And I would love to pause it right now, get your ideas about it. I mean, it's the first time you've read it. So if everything's kind of like a blur, don't feel bad. I've read this many times, and every time I get kind of a different feeling. One of my big questions, we can never answer it, which maybe is one of the things that you hate. We can never answer. But the first time I read this, I remember, because it's repeated 3 times, repetition is sometimes a thing in poetry. And if something is repeated often, it's probably important. But why's mama in the bedroom with the door closed? I've looked. I don't know if there are any clues there, but my mind always wanders to like the worst. I don't know. No, let's read it one more time and then we can talk about these things. But I love that first line, by the way. I'm 14 and my skin has betrayed me. So we got some personification. Skin is not a person, but I remember when I was younger, I would always get nervous, I think, before school pictures or before the prom or whatever, and I would inevitably get like a zit. Come on, really? Right now? But I think it was because of my nerves. So my skin betrayed me all the time. Hopefully yours doesn't, but it's not fun. That's part of teenage years, right? All right, here we go. I'm 14 and my skin has betrayed me. The boy I cannot live without still sucks his thumb in secret. How come my knees are always so ashy? What if I die before morning? And mama's in the bedroom with the door closed. So again, this repetition, we got the mama in the bedroom with the door closed, and all the time, it's coupled with the fact that the narrator is worried that she's going to die. So what if, I don't know, what if mama's in the bedroom? Maybe she's dead. Maybe the daughter knows that she is and she doesn't want to go in there. I don't know, maybe she's a drug addict. I don't know. But I think with those 2 lines together, it doesn't paint a great picture. We don't know for sure, but I mean, I've provided enough evidence that that's plausible. One of our words from a while ago, it's possible. All right, one more time. Let's read through this. I think I read the first stanza, right? I'll read the next 2 here. I have to learn to dance in time for the next party. My room is too small for me. Suppose I die before graduation. They will sing sad melodies, but finally tell the truth about me. I'm not going to stop. Let's keep going. There is nothing I want to do and too much that has to be done. And mama's in the bedroom with the door closed. Nobody even stops to think about my side of it. I should have been on math team. My marks were better than his. Why do I have to be the one wearing braces? I have nothing to wear tomorrow. Will I live long enough to grow up? And mom is in the bedroom with the door closed. All right, why don't we pause there? I wanted to read the next poem is really good too. I hope you like this. It makes me think quite a bit. You know, you can read this over and over. I mean, we could read this a third time. Maybe we will tomorrow. Kind of let it sink in. That's the thing about poetry is like it should take a long time for a good poet to write a poem. Like each line, there is a certain meter, there's a certain beat to that poem. And so that poet probably took as much time to write that poem as maybe an author writing prose would take to write a chapter. Probably many drafts, getting that right word to just fit in there. I think of it as like bricks in a building. Like each one has to fit perfectly or it's all going to crumble. It's kind of the way it is with poetry. All right. Hope you enjoyed it. More poetry coming tomorrow. There is a Google form you could start. Then we'll get into Frank and